So we are going to jump straight in. I have some questions that I like to ask you guys about how to grow and maintain a powerful network. So starting off, one mistake people make with networking is only thinking about what they can get out of the relationship, but it should be a two-way street. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things people just starting out can offer to make a connection mutually beneficial. And whoever wants to go first to start.
I'll go number one. See, I think when you're first starting out and you don't have a lot of post-college experience on your plate, it's really important to align yourself, or really helpful, at least in my experience, to align myself with the opportunities or the people that I want to be close to and offer them what I can do for free. I mean, like, I think there's a period of time that every new graduate goes through where you're working for free. And, you know, that builds experience, that builds ethic, that builds relationship, and you can really kind of take that experience and transition it in you know, interviews, and use those experiences that you've built to speak to questions in interviews and things. So that's my.
I think you said, you know, it's a two-way street. So like, we live in the city, like there's always events going on, and I think kind of extending, like if you get invited to an event and maybe there's someone else in the industry that you can say, hey, let's go to this together. And, you know, I think that's something that's always really cool because it's mutually beneficial. They can network and you can kind of show them like you're interested in collaborating somehow and coming together in that same industry. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how do you go about reaching out to someone kind of cold turkey? So whether it's online, which is really popular right now, at maybe, you know, LinkedIn or Twitter, or I mean, even just walking up to someone maybe at an event, how do you go about doing that?
Well, for me, it's an editorial, especially, it's kind of hard, you know, to get your name out there. So many people are sending out resumes, and it's hard to like make yourself pop out. But make your email a lot different. And what I did is that I would apply for a job, and then I would search and search and search, and I hate to use the word, but I would stalk and try to find an editor's email. You can, with Google, you can find absolutely anything. I would search for an editor's email, and I would be like, hey, I just applied for this position. I just wanted to reiterate my interest. I wanted to let you know that I've done this and this and that. And from that, I've been able to get the internships that I've gotten from Vogue to Latina, Sony. That's how I did it, just by not just only applying, but reaching out and being like, hey, I want to, and showing that interest, because they get like millions of resumes. And you know, it's hard to get your resume out there. It could be the best resume in the world, but they have to look through all these emails and resumes. So I think it helps a lot to, you know, show your interest with it. And even making sometimes I look at the description of the email, and if they're looking for someone funny, like, or someone, I'll even put a meme in the email and make it funny. Don't do that if it's a serious job. Okay. But sometimes the description, they want someone funny, they want someone outgoing. So I'll put a meme in there, I'll put a funny joke, make the subject interesting. One of my friends, she got the job to be the assistant to the editor-in-chief at Lucky when it was still an editorial, but she made the subject something that the editor-in-chief had tweeted. Like, she responded to the tweet in the subject. And something like that makes your email so much more different and so much more interesting.
To build off of that, I would say just stay as far away from like the generic cookie cutter emails as you can. And obviously it's more time consuming, but that really does matter. The subject line is important, and the way that you approach whatever it is you're getting at is a way to show your individuality, and I think it's key.
Yeah. Know your audience. Right?
So you've sent that awesome email, and they're clicked a little bit, but they're probably going to Google you. At least I do. If you reach out to me and you want something, the first thing I do, I have two screens up. Your email is here. I Google your name, and sounds awful, but depending on what I find, I decide whether or not I'm going to respond, and I decide whether that response is, hey, let's talk, or hey, let me connect you with someone else, and then that other person has to deal with you. And so how do you make your online presence really stand out so that when that person Googles you, they're like, oh, okay, she's already talking about fashion on Twitter, or, you know, she's retweeting every one of my articles or commenting on every one of my articles. How do you make yourself stand out online so that people want to engage?
I think that putting your best foot, being very conscious of what you're branding yourself as online is really, really integral to making that first impression, because like you kind of just, piggybanking off what you said, your first impression is no longer really made in person. It's made digitally, and that's without any kind of context, your body language or your laugh or your smile. It's just what you're posting and what you're talking about online, that a lot of people are getting this look into what you're like as a person. So kind of curating consciously or targeting what you want to be interpreted as, I think is important. I mean, I know when I was applying for Macy's or for other positions, I made sure that I kind of am in the fashion world in one way, but I'm also in the tech world in another way. And I wanted to make that clear on my LinkedIn that I work with development teams and I have a side hustle on the side in fashion, so that's something that when you first Google me, you'll see I'm immediately can be aligned with technology and fashion, and that's what I want. I want you to know that. So that's what I would recommend, just consciously branding yourself online.
I think your social network should match with your interests. Like she said, I'm gonna Google search you. So if you're telling me that you're so interested in your cover letter and fashion and you love it, but then I go to your Instagram and it's recipes, that's a little weird. I'm not gonna take you seriously. So if your interest is fashion, then you should be putting up fashion posts. Not necessarily doesn't have to be on you, but you should be retweeting fashion things and showing that you love fashion, or like if there's an award show, making comments on like what was on the red carpet. If it's food that you love and it's recipes, and that should be it. But whatever you put in your cover letter and you write about what you're passionate about, it should match with your social networks.
I want to go back to what we were talking about in the green room. So John is also a professor, and he was talking about how some of his students, you don't mind me telling
No,
sure.
What is she about to say?
He was telling me how some of his students will say, "Oh, professor, like, can you get me into the fashion show?" And he's like, "Yeah, you want to volunteer? Like, I can." He's like, "They're like, no, I want to like sit and watch the fashion show." And he's like, people, like, that's their job, to sit and watch the fashion show. So, and we basically just called it entitlement, So, talk to me a little bit about entitlement in networking. Like, when people feel like, oh, I've got this relationship, like, oh, I know they're going to get me the job, when that's not really the case. Like, talk to just kind of manage people's expectations about what networking is and what it isn't, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think, entitlement in general is something that we should sort of steer clear of, like we have worked to get to where we are, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to, take that volunteering position and do something for free to help out a friend or help out a prospective, partner in the industry. So I think it's always like saying yes and saying like, you're willing to do something. Again, with my students, I was like, I can definitely get you to volunteer at XYZ fashion show, but you have to show your best face and put your best foot forward. I think that's really important in this industry because there's so many internships, we all get it. Like, there's a lot of working for free, but it pays off. If you show someone what you're capable of, it will, come back to you.
A lot of people will use networking as a way to find a mentor. What are your thoughts on that? People just reaching out and kind of hoping that you will become their mentor. Do you feel like we should build some rapport for a little while and then, it just is kind of a non-said and we keep in contact? And if someone does want to do the cold reach out, will you be my mentor? Do you have any advice for how they could reach out and say that?
I don't think it should be like directly be my mentor. I think you should, reach out for a cup of coffee, reach out. Can we grab lunch? You're someone that I look up to. I'm trying to step into this industry. I think it's a little like aggressive to be like, be my mentor. But you can bring it up during, reach coffee. There's a lot of people that I know that, would, go for coffee just to help people out, or help people who are starting off. So it is something that is possible. Don't think that this editor or this person in PR would never have coffee with me. They actually might, and they actually most likely would. So don't be afraid to reach out for them for a cup of coffee before they step into the office. You could even be like, we'll meet around your offices, something like that to make it a little easier for them. And in the coffee or lunch or whatever it is, you can bring up, I'm looking to find a mentorship. I'm looking for someone to kind of lead me the way in this career. And it can start from there, but I don't recommend, being my mentor.
I think it's important to realize how important their time is, whoever it is that you're asking for guidance, and realize that potentially you're asking them to help you just for free, and be very gracious about that. So respect what they've done, where they're going, and the opportunity to sit down with them, be it 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 45, just be aware of that's a gift that they're giving you.
And like Anna said, think about this as you are using you're essentially using up people's time. Time is the one thing that you
Most
really
valuable.
can't get back.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the cadence of communication that maybe someone sitting out here, how often should they be reaching out? And then what should they be reaching out about?
I mean, I think that you should give it some time. When you reach out to someone, if you haven't heard back, I think following up is perfectly fine, but, maybe give it a week or so. The industry, it is really cutthroat. A lot of people have deadlines, and so sometimes it's not the top priority, but, we will hopefully get around. I mean, I'm always the type of person, because I reach out a lot. I'm a publicist, so I'm always pitching all of you, and sometimes I don't hear back, It's completely normal, but you do have to stay persistent, jump on the call. So many people don't want to make phone calls, and when I was trained, I was always trained to call and follow up. And that's the way, when you get on the phone with someone, you can kind of really understand who they are, you kind of build a different relationship versus just email. So I think a phone call is really great.
I completely agree with the phone call. Even in my day-to-day work, if I need something done, an email kind of sets a vague expectation of when you're going to get a response. But if you can get on the phone, if you can get somebody on the phone, they're more likely to pick up and engage with you. And I would just kind of, on Tatiana's point, you reach out once, you follow up a second time, but if it's not real, if there's no response, I think after maybe a follow-up or two, I think it's kind of classy to drop that and maybe keep moving, because you don't want to annoy someone or pester someone before they even have the opportunity to meet you. So that's, I think, something to keep in mind.
And let's say you did finally get in touch with them, and you guys had your coffee or you had your informational meeting, and of course you sent your thank you, follow-up. I personally prefer handwritten, but people may prefer email. How long then should you wait until reaching out to them again? Because obviously this is a connection that you want to maintain. How long, do you feel is appropriate for people to reach out?
It should be like a flow. It should be something natural. When it came to my past internship advisors, I would send them emails or sometimes even handwritten notes, wishing them happy holidays, wishing them a good internship season, seeing if they needed help with anything, things like that. Just, it should be natural. It shouldn't be so forced, in a week being hey, remember me? It should be something if you need help with your resume and you want them to look over it, something like that. But it shouldn't be so forced. When it comes to mentors, I have a mentor myself. And when I got my promotion, it was I reached out to her and I was oh my God, guess what? When I needed someone to fix my resume, I was can you just look over it for me? Something like that. But it was never, or I would ask her how she was doing. I know that she has, she just gave birth to her son. So I was how's it going with your newborn? Things like that. It should be very natural. It shouldn't be so forced for them to remember you. If they took the opportunity to be your mentor, or they took the opportunity to build a relationship with you, it should be something that just happens naturally.
I think finding things, back up. If you're looking for a mentor and potentially, ideally, they're in the same industry as you. So also maybe they're on the same career path, they're a few years down the road, finding things that are happening at the time in whatever industry this is and connecting with them over that. So sending them an email saying, hey, I read this about X, Y, and Z, or extending and calling them and discussing a certain topic. That's also a really easy and natural way to continue building and growing that relationship.
Shifting gears a little bit from just kind of cold reaching out on email or LinkedIn, etc. I feel like two of the easiest places to build your network are through your alumni of your school, and then through people that you've worked with when you move on to a new job. How do you maintain relationships with people that you worked with before?
Social media, Facebook. I'm friends with a lot of people. Actually, this opportunity came through a former, we interned together at the stock exchange, and he thought of, because we're still friends on social media, on Facebook, we kind of keep somewhat of a familiarity between, us going, and I like his post, he comments on my post or whatever. So when I was contacted and referenced by my friend, it was comfortable. I trusted, the information, and I just think that's really valuable to keep your former contacts familiar, at least.
And which social media outlet, really make sure that you're using them correctly.
Yeah.
Don't add your boss on Instagram if your Instagram is all about, jokes and really funny, and maybe it's just, a little bit more private, which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their own thing, but, maybe that's what you utilize LinkedIn for. LinkedIn is amazing. It's such a great professional tool to kind of keep that, relationship going, on social media, but in a professional setting, and saying this is what I'm doing now, so they're getting updates on where you're working now or what you're looking for. It's just know your mediums.
Yeah. Any tips for introverts? I feel like for an extrovert, it's very much oh yeah, I'm gonna tell them what I'm doing. I'm all over Twitter, hashtag. The people who are oh my god, yeah, we know each other, but dog, I really don't want to.
You need to step out of your comfort zone. Nothing ever, not that nothing ever happens, but nothing, you can't really progress in your comfort zone. You need to be able to feel comfortable stepping out of it. If you're not a social media person, give it a try. See, because you'll be surprised, especially when it comes to fashion, PR, anything. Social media is what is big right now, digital. So step out of that, comfort zone. Don't be afraid to speak up. I got my job from sitting in a meeting and listening to them, and they were we're looking for someone to do this. And I went into the editor-in-chief's office, I spoke up, and I'm buried to myself. But I'm trying to learn to be more extrovert, trying to get out there. And I was hey, I think I'm perfect for this position. I worked here for over a year, and I think I really deserve it, and now I have the job. And even before that, I had heard that they wanted to get somewhere digitally. So I went up to the digital editor a couple months ago, and I was hey, do you guys have a Snapchat? She was yeah, but no one ever uses it. I was can I manage it? And then I started running the People en Español Snapchat. So things like that. Step out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to speak up, I'm not saying go around the office yelling all the time, or go and there's times where you can step out of your comfort zone. I'm not saying step out of your comfort zone all the time. If you're an introvert, you're an introvert. It's not I'm an introvert, I'm always going to be one, but there's times where you really should step out of your comfort zone.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm an extroverted introvert, and so it's a daily struggle. But I think to remind yourself that networking and communicating about your career, or just asking for that promotion, those are all learned skills. Just get good at them. The better you become, the more comfortable you will feel. So just remind yourself that you have to start somewhere, and take those baby steps to get to the point where you just naturally feel good at it. Sorry to interrupt.
No. I think something for introverts, I would classify myself as an introvert, and sometimes I don't feel comfortable speaking up in a big meeting or a big group, or going to happy hours and networking the traditional way after work. So what I try to do is schedule one-on-ones with my colleague, a working lunch with a peer of mine, or a one-on-one with my manager, and just kind of any thoughts that I had about our strategy, our team, any my career goals, anything that I want to talk about that I don't feel comfortable talking about in a big group, some other people might feel comfortable talking about. I try to schedule those strategically on a one-on-one basis, because that's more my comfort zone, and it's more focused, and it's you get more feedback that's more centered towards you. So
That's great.
I'm going to add one more thing to that, and I feel like, and I don't know, it could just be with anyone, but the worst thing anyone can ever say is no. So if you're worried about no, like, I'm an only child, it's the number one thing I hate. Do not tell me no. Go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, go, no. Okay, there's your no, now go ask the question, and believe that you'll get a yes. So, can I keep... Oh, she gave me a sign. Now I know. Okay, so I am super organized, and when I was in college, I'm not even gonna lie, I don't keep up with it now, but like I used to have this Excel spreadsheet that was like name, contact, last time I talked to them, what we talked about, because I felt like that was what, I was I also like reaching out to people like all the time. Do you have a way that you keep, and I feel like John, you work in PR, so you probably have like maybe some type of organization system, but how do you get, he's like, no, why'd you do that? Sorry. Do you have a way that you keep all of your networking contacts, like,
Yeah, so whenever I do, I work a lot on events. So like if we're doing a fashion show for a designer, I do keep a log. So like, I'll have the same database over and over. So it's the same contacts, but I'll like restart it and kind of have a notes column and say, okay, we reached out to this editor on this day and this was the pitch. Did they respond, yes or no? I try to do that. Also, our emails have little boxes at the top that say search. So, I'll easily kind of reference that as well. Not as organized as I wish I was. I'm always wishing that there was an Excel doc for all of us. But, we do our best. Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay.
No, but I'm going to start your system.
It really was helpful. I don't keep up with it as much now, but it was helpful. I feel like people like to network with people older than them because that's where they want to be, and I totally understand that. But I also feel there's some importance with networking with your peers and maintaining relationships with your peers. And I'm not talking about just the like, oh my God, beer pong, like no, but like legitimately knowing what they want to do professionally and having them know what you want to do professionally. Do you also have that same belief? And just talk to me a little bit about the importance and how you maintain that relationship outside of shots.
Yeah, I think it's important to know what the people your age are doing in your industry and to learn and grow from them and also develop relationships with them. I think far too often it's easier to look ahead, like you were saying, and think, what can I learn from this person who's older and wiser? But there's always something to learn from maybe the person that you work across from or you walk to class with. So definitely.
I think it's important because I have like my industry friends, and then I have like my friends' friends, the ones that I go out with. But it's good to connect with them and meet up and talk about everything that's going on in our industry and see what's happening here and there. And it helps to connect with these people because they might be able to help you get a position in the future, and they'll remember you. When you make all these friends and they're all in the same industry as you, it's quick to remember and be like, oh hey, she loves this as much as I do. Let me recommend her. So it's good to have those friends, the friends that you have fun with, and then the friends in the industry.
I'm going to, I think my one last question is just your number one tip for growing or maintaining your network. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. I think this is relevant to growing and maintaining your network and just career in general. A rule of thumb of mine is go towards what I'm scared of instead of staying where I'm comfortable or going towards what I'm more comfortable in. That has really been my navigation point so far, and it's kind of helped my track record so far. And if I'm scared of something, it probably means that it's going to be really beneficial to me. And if I do it, the results could exceed my expectations, and most likely they do. Definitely.
I'm probably going to steal Brittany's and say, don't say no. Never say no. Like, take chances, say yes to opportunities when people, present things your way. Just say yes. And if you don't know, make it up along the way, or ask questions, or do what you have to do, but put yourself out there and show people your worth.
I think that it's important to be interested. In order to be interesting, be interested in whatever it is, whether it's networking or it's a job. Just let that show, because I think that stands out.
For me, it has to go back to what we were talking about earlier with entitlement. Never, put yourself higher, and it's okay to do things for free. That's where you learn a lot. It's okay to intern. It's okay to contribute to magazines and to websites just for free. That helps you along the way. You make a lot of connections. So don't think just because you did so much work or you got a 4.0 GPA that you're above everyone else.